should see it. And we finished up basically, what we finished up was
your favorite type of economic.
Yeah, we finished up with capitalism, but also the 5 basic concepts of democracy, okay? American democracy. And so what I said there at the end is, this is where the objective portion of the test ends. And today we'll begin the portion of the section 1 where we pick up with the essay, okay? I just put the review sheet for the essay up on the module for section 1. And I also posted an assignment that'll be due for you guys on Friday, for you guys on Thursday. And that is on page 20, there's a grid, a chart, okay? And you're going to read, after that, you're going to read these 3 documents. Okay, now they're not the full text of the documents, they're excerpts. And you're going to go through that grid, and you're going to mark off things that you find in that Constitution, okay? What we're looking at here is the English tradition's impact on our government. So these are the 3 English constitutions, okay? Starting with the Magna Carta, the Petition of Right in 1628, the English Bill of Rights in 1688. Okay, so really what we're embarking on for this essay is a journey from 1215, where there's absolute monarch, okay, when King John is forced to sign the Magna Carta in 1215. And what rights are found out of that document. As we move through history, 400 years later, the Petition of Right, which is their 2nd constitution, and then their 3rd, the English Bill of Rights, okay? Keeping in mind what's going on in history during this time period will help you to more accurately fill out your grid. There are some on the grid that you will not mark, okay? Like certain things you will not find, rights that you will not find in any of these, but you will find in the U.S. Bill of Rights, okay? So we're looking for that impact and that change over time. Then, as the American colonies grow out of British homeland, okay, we will look at how these colonies developed over time. That's what we're going to be doing today, okay, because this is your homework that we'll discuss on Thursday and Friday, okay? So you will show me that grid when you show up for class on Friday. I'll look at it, and I'll assign you between 0 and 10 points, okay? I'll just call your name, have you bring it up here and show it to me. Okay, then we'll go over it in class. So I might record one of those sessions just for people that miss those classes, but I'm going to do the same thing in class with everybody. Okay, so Thursday and Friday will be a repeat. Okay, then we'll look at the Revolutionary era. Okay, and how we begin to rebel against the British. Okay, and what impact that has on our government. And then lastly, in your book, and there's going to be a video that I'm going to send you that you'll need to watch on the Founding Fathers and famous documents that you'll find in your book, speeches, documents that were given by different Founding Fathers. These are all the things that you're going to include in your essay, okay? So this is one paragraph of your essay. This is one paragraph of your essay, and this is one paragraph of your essay. Okay, so those are your 3 body paragraphs. If you want to split these up during the essay, you'll get a better grasp over the next week what we're talking about as far as what information, and you'll be able to plug that into your essay. Okay, so everything before this is on the objective portion of the test. Everything that's forward, the essay. Okay. Well, Thursday and Friday, we begin doing that. I'm going to try and get through as many notes as possible today in this stuff, okay? And so tests will probably be next Thursday and Friday.
Maybe next Monday, Tuesday.
We'll see. I know you. What's going on here? I'm recording. Why are you going dark on me? Okay. All right. So if you would, I mean, you can write this as your next header for the notes. And then these are things that you might want to leave some room on, because that's what we'll be discussing on Thursday and Friday. Okay. And we're going to jump forward, okay, to the growth of the colonies and how that impacted our government. Okay, the growth of the colonies and how that impacted our government is what we're going to start with. Okay. So, I'll let you guys write for a second.
Okay, when's the Newman thing due?
It's Friends,
Friends, sorry.
and it's the 14th.
It's like there's a code that type into that, right?
There's CRN to find my class that I sent to everybody yesterday on the inbox. You saw it? And then if you can't find the video of how to register for the class, it's on my YouTube channel. I think I put it in an announcement instead of an assignment. Okay, but it's also on my YouTube channel. If you see a black lady on the screen with me, that's the one. Okay. Juanita, but she goes by Michelle. She's your contact person if you need contact. Okay. Because I'm not part of Friends Administration. All right. I just teach the class. All right. All right. So, do you remember studying last year in American history or in previous years when you studied American history? There were 3 types of colonies. Okay, let me start at the beginning. Okay, let's just do a little history, get you back into the century, maybe.
Give us a hint.
1607 was the first permanent settlement in the New World. It was called Jamestown. Okay, now, where is Jamestown today? It's in Virginia. Okay. A few years later, these people we like to call Puritans, sometimes Pilgrims, landed in 1620. Where? Where? Somebody say Nevada?
Rhode Island.
No.
Well, I didn't say that.
Plymouth Rock.
We get that holiday off. We don't learn about it during.
Oh, I know. Who knows what Thanksgiving means? Okay, so anyhow, okay. So we got two of the 13, right? Virginia and Massachusetts, yes? Okay. Now, guys, obviously this is going to be a major struggle for these people, yes, that are living in these early settlers. It's very difficult, okay? Survival is what they know, okay? But over time, these colonies will grow, okay? And with some of the colonies, the king grants a charter to somebody to establish a colony in the king's name. We call these what kind of colonies? Or royal. Good. All right, now we're cooking. All right, so royal colonies. All right, now, guys, there were 3 royal colonies to start. Okay, you had New York, New Jersey, and Virginia. Okay. Now, what we're going to be doing is looking at the governments that are established in each of these 3 different types of colonies. Okay, and look at those traditions, some of which we keep for our new constitutions. Okay, and so forth. Okay, so the royal colonies, the king, okay, established these colonies with the charter, okay, and the king got to appoint the government. With some exceptions, okay. Now, they set up a 3-branch government, okay, 3 branches. Sound familiar? Yeah, 3 branches. Okay. The governor is chosen by the king. They had a bicameral Legislature. What's bicameral mean? Two chambers, okay, with an upper and a lower. The upper, appointed by the king. The lower house was made up of these people. Why is this going to work? This is working. All right. By white male property owners. Okay? White male property owners. Okay? Now, these white male property owners, these aren't just white males, you have to own property. Okay? There's a difference. Okay? Now, this house, the lower house, controlled the purse. What does that mean? They control the money. Okay? So if the governor appointed by the king wants to spend money, who gets to decide whether the king gets to spend money? The colonists, the white male property owners. Okay, so they have a say even though this is a royal colony. Now this is a tradition we keep to this day. Okay, as you will learn in the U.S. House of Representatives, you see as the lower house, you have the Senate and the House. The House is closer to the people. You guys know how many members are in the United States House of Representatives? No? No? 435. Okay, everybody say it with me. How many members are there in the United States House of Representatives? 435. Okay, let's remember that. Now, today, anytime our government wants to spend money or tax us, it has to start in the House of Representatives. That bill has to start in the House. Okay? That's a tradition we take back to even the royal colonies. Okay? Now, later on, when the colonies began to rebel against England and Britain, later Britain, okay, they're going to take control of more of these colonies. So later on, we're going to see some more colonies added to this list, okay, and they will include New Hampshire, Massachusetts, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. Okay, these will become royal colonies with rebellion. Basically, the king's going to take them over. They don't know how to act. They don't know how to act. I'm taking over. I'm going to appoint the governor. Okay? I'm going to appoint the governor. Okay? The judges were appointed by the king here with the royal colonies. Okay? All right. So we got one kind of colony knocked out, royal colonies. There was another type of colony that were similar, but they were kind of set up as like a business. So the king would appoint somebody to like start a colony to make money for both the person that ran the colony and the king. Starts with a P. And these are called proprietary colonies. Okay. Now, these colonies included Maryland, Pennsylvania, Delaware, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. So with these, you might remember some of the names. William Penn, who was the proprietor of what colony? Pennsylvania. Lord Baltimore, proprietor of Maryland. James Oglethorpe, the proprietor of what penal colony? Georgia. Okay. Now, in doing a little more studying, guys, I was reading a book Father Eric Weldon gave me. But I had that out the other day, and I'm like, yeah, I need to keep that out because I want to talk about it. And he had me read this book called American Cicero. Okay? Maybe it's in here. It wasn't here, and then I took it out. And maybe it's laying right here. And maybe it's not. Or maybe it's here. Okay. My Catholic brethren here, okay? Let's talk about Maryland. All right, so Lord Baltimore, obviously, he's going to be the proprietor, okay? This is like an owner of a business, okay? And any guys took business principles or something like that, you learn what a proprietorship is like, a sole owner of a business, okay? Now, most proprietors, if you're smart, you don't set up a proprietorship. You set up an S corporation, okay? It gives you limited liability when you start a business. So the corporation has the liability, not the proprietor. Does that make sense? Okay, so this was set up, guys. These are set up to make money. Now, one of the things that the British wanted to do was get rid of certain people in Britain. They're like, you know what? We got these people in the jails that are serving long sentences for debt or whatever, crimes. You know, we could empty our jails and send these people over to the New World to work for these proprietors. And so it's pretty typical that most people look to Georgia as a penal colony, kind of like Australia was. Okay, they sent all the riffraff to Australia. That's why those people are crazy down there. You know what I mean? And that's why we're kind of crazy here too. Okay, I used to live in Georgia. All right, there's some crazy people down there. All right, I'm kind of kidding, but not really. Okay, but Maryland actually, guys, had more criminals and people undesirables that the British wanted to get out. Okay, and a lot of these people come over as indentured servants. Okay, and a lot of them look like Kinsey because they're from where? Ireland, and they're Catholic. Okay, so a lot of Irish were sent to Maryland. Okay, and it's interesting, guys. Did you guys ever see the movie National Treasure with Nicolas Cage? The fun Declaration of Independence movie where there's a treasure map on the back. You're not showing an affirmative here. Really, Grace? National Treasure. What?
I like it.
It's a classic. You seen it? It's a really good movie. It's fun. Okay? And it's got some history in it. And they mention at the beginning of the movie, did you guys know this? There was one Catholic man to sign the Declaration of Independence. Okay? His name was Charles Carroll. Interesting. Carroll, right? Okay. And he was, his father was extremely wealthy. Came over to the United States. They were one of the richest families in all the colonies, the Carroll family. Okay. The son was educated both in Paris, okay, classical education in Paris, but then also educated in Oxford, England. So he had the Catholic education in Paris, and then he got the Protestant education at Oxford in England. Okay, and so this young man is brilliant, Charles, the son. Okay, and so because of the wealth of his father and so forth, he is able to get into these circles, these political circles, and because of this education in conversations with these other political leaders, he is welcome into the conversation. You understand? He is invited to the Second Continental Congress, even though he's Catholic. Okay? So, I mean, that's kind of a big deal. You know what I mean? The Kennedy family, very similarly, at a later time, breaks into this. You know what I mean? The first Catholic president is John F. Kennedy. The father, Joseph Kennedy, was a very powerful and wealthy man. Okay? So, I want to read through some of these notes with you guys that I got from Father Eric Weldon and reading this book. But so they call him American Cicero. Okay, So by 1660, in Maryland, Catholics made up about 10% of the population, okay, but had some power. By 1680, 20% of the the total population of Maryland was 20,000, 4,000 Catholic. By 1770, there were 80,000 people living in Maryland, okay. So there were times where Catholics were treated just like everybody else in Maryland, but by 715, Catholics lost the right to vote. Okay, so there were different times. The Carrolls show up in Maryland in 1689. Okay. Daniel Carroll's the father, then the great-grandfather, Charles Carroll, and then Charles Carroll II is the one that will sign the Declaration of Independence. Okay. He was educated for 16 years in Europe. 1756, the Militia Act, Catholics had to pay double tax because they weren't allowed to serve in the militia. That was 1756. Okay, 757, Charles Carroll of Annapolis marries. At 22 years old, he inherits his father's wealth. Becomes the richest man in Maryland. Okay. So like his British upbringing and education was based on like civil liberties, and then the French dealing with between totalitarian governments and freedom. He lives until he's 1832. Okay. His wife that he married is connected to a lot of Protestants. They had 7 kids, 3 of them died. Okay. He writes an important document called First Citizen, Moral and Philosophical Argument for Independence. Okay. So he played a pretty big role here. Okay. Helped lead the Tea Party in Maryland. Okay, there was a Tea Party in Maryland as well in 1774. Patriot Convention. And then he was appointed to the First and Second Continental Congress, signed the Declaration of Independence, and named to the Board of War in 1778. He'll lose a lot of his money because of signing the Declaration of Independence. Okay. And then served in the Maryland Senate. And to the United States Senate. Cool. At the Constitutional Convention in 1787, there were 2 other Catholics besides him. Okay. He did own between 400 and 500 slaves in Maryland, grew tobacco, did agree with abolishing slavery later on. Okay. Oh, and he met Alexis de Tocqueville. I don't know if you guys have heard that name. Alexis de Tocqueville, Democracy in America. Okay, I got to get on Ferris about that. Because a lot of my students hadn't heard about it. Guys, this book, written by a Frenchman, okay, he came to the United States and traveled across the United States and wrote what he witnessed in America. Okay, and so it's a picture of America from an outsider. Okay, and it describes democracy in America, how we are, just how different we are from Europeans. Okay, although we all ascend from, at the time, mostly from Europe. Okay, so pretty interesting. Okay, back to proprietary colonies. Sorry, trying to throw in some Catholic history. Okay. All right, doing my best. All right, so the king appoints the proprietor. Okay, So he runs the colony. So the governor of the colony is going to be the proprietor. I don't know if it's ER or OR. I think it's OR. Okay, again, 3 branches. The judges were appointed by the king. The executive is the proprietor. And the legislature is made up of white male property owners. Okay? Now, they also control the purse and they control the governor's salary. Now, here's something to think about, guys. In 1700, let's say, pick a year, right? 1700. How long, if you wanted to get a message from Pennsylvania to London and get a response and it comes back, how long does it take for a message to go there and come back? Months, right? So the proprietors, the governors, the royal governors, they have to listen to the white male property owners. They have to listen to the colonists because the king cannot micromanage these colonies from across an ocean. It takes too long. If there's a problem, you deal with it. It's just kind of like this classroom, guys. If I have a problem in this classroom, I deal with it. Now, I could get the administration involved, but then I'm going to have to get on the intercom and ask them to bring somebody up here. It's going to take a long time. I'm just going to nip it in the bud right there. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to deal with it. Even though I may not have all the authority, I'm going to deal with the problem. Okay? So this is important. Okay? The fact that they control the money and they control the governor's salary. Okay? This gives them a lot of power. The people a lot of power. Okay? In the system. Third type of colony. There's different names for these, but we're going to call them independent colonies. Now, these were colonies that were started without any explicit charter from the king. Okay? And they include Connecticut, Rhode Island, there it is, New Hampshire, and Massachusetts. They would elect their own governor. And they would elect their own legislatures, oftentimes referred to as an assembly. Which means they control the money. Now, guys, it's these colonies that are going to start the trouble. Okay, these independent colonies. These are self-governing. Self-government. They create their own system. Okay? Now think about it. From the 1620s in Plymouth, Massachusetts, for 150 years. Now, at the beginning, guys, we're talking about a small number of people living in these colonies. And then the ones that survive will have children. And now you have people being born in the New World. Okay? George Washington was born in the New World in Virginia. He was not born in England. Okay, so you have generations of Americans growing up living in these colonies that are self-governing. Even the royal colonies, there was not micromanaging of the colonies because it was too far away. And the colonists controlled the money. Okay, so they really get used to this self-rule. It's kind of like this, guy. If I come in here the first week of school and I say, really, guys, I'm teaching history and government, and, you know, whatever you want to do while you're here is fine. You know, I mean, if you guys want to talk to each other, it doesn't really bother me. Basically, guys, there's no rules. Okay? All right, here's chapter 1. All right, there's no rules. You guys ignore me. You have fun, you're eating, you're drinking, you know, you're on your phones. It's chaos. Okay? And then like 2 months later, or let's say 6 months later, I'm like, hey, guys, we're supposed to be learning in here. All right, I'm going to put some rules out. How are you going to respond to that? You're not going to like it, are you? You're like, wait a second, Mr. Ebright, we love this class. Why are you putting rules on us? And then you're all going to hate me. Okay? We're talking about human beings living free for 150 years. And then the government's going to start clamping down on them. And they're not going to respond well to it. Okay? So what do we get out of this? Okay, these traditions, 3 branches of government, you know, in this colony, electing your own governor, your own representatives. Even in the royal colonies, people controlled the money. Okay, these sorts of things, okay, that will have an impact moving forward on our system of government. Okay, fun times living in the colonies, not really. Okay, all right. So then we move into this era of a brief review of revolutionary history. Okay, so one of the things I'm going to do tomorrow is I thought I had it recorded. Guys, YouTube took down the video. I mean, I own the video. I emailed the History Channel and said, hey, during the pandemic, do you think you can put this video up on your website for free? And they said no. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to record it on here and make a file and send you the file to watch the video. Okay? Because I can't show it to both classes. You know what I mean? So I'm going to do that tomorrow. I won't be able to post it on YouTube, obviously. Okay? But I'm an educator, and I paid money for that DVD, and I'm going to use it to educate my students with. Okay? And it's an important video to watch. Okay? For now and into the future. Okay? About the founding fathers. So I'll try and get that out tomorrow, sometime mid-morning. So if you want to watch it on your day off, you can. Okay. So looking at brief, if you need a new header here, brief review of revolutionary history. So as I was just talking about, guys, from 1607 to roughly 1760, okay, about 150 years. This era is referred to by historians, the era of salutatory neglect. Because of the division of the Atlantic Ocean, or the pond, the king cannot micromanage the colonies. And so basically they are left alone to conduct business. Okay? Now, as the mercantilist system works, if these colonies are successful, it benefits the crown. Okay? Now, during this 150 years, the British and the French had 4 wars of empire. You may have heard of some of these wars. Queen Anne's War, King William's War, King George's War, and the last and most expensive of these is what? The French and Indian War. In Europe, they call this war what? They have a different name for it. How long did it last? The 7 years. So that's what they call it in Europe. We call it the French and Indian War. Okay, this is the fourth of 4 wars that are fought both in Europe and in the New World. So these are world wars that the British and the French are fighting. Okay, between the Protestants and the Catholics, can't we all just get along? Now, in Canada, they don't call it either one of these. There's a lot of this French and Indian Wars fought in Canada. Places like Nova Scotia, okay, Fort Louisburg. Take my War and Peace class, I'll teach you all about it. Oh yeah, they don't give me that class anymore. Okay, so anyhow, in Canada, so my son and daughter went to Central Christian Academy, and they had this history teacher, social studies teacher, and she's fabulous. I loved going to see her at conferences because she just loves history. And she was in Canada a few years back, and she does a lot on this French and Indian War. And so she's talking to this Canadian person, and she goes, "Oh yeah, I teach all about the French and Indian War." And he goes, well, "Excuse me, what did you say?" She's like, "I was talking about the French and Indian. Excuse me, we don't use that word here." She's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. What word is that?" And he said, "Indian." They just call it simply the war. In Canada, this is the war. It's like World War I. You know what I mean? The war, the Great War. They call it the war. Okay. Now, we didn't hear about the Wichita School Board last night. We will no longer be calling North High mascot the Redskins. Okay, they've done away with that. Okay. Now, I don't want to get involved in a big discussion on that. Look, if you ask me, ask the Native Americans around here. Okay, if they don't like the name, if it's offensive to them, then okay, let's do away with it. But a lot of Native Americans, it doesn't bother them. It does bother some. You know who it really bothers? White liberals. That's what bothers them. Okay. Now, no, seriously. I mean, because the state of Kansas is named after an Indian. Now, the term Redskin, okay, like when Washington Redskins, that name that they took away, do you know why they were called the Redskins? Because on that first team, there were 2 Native American Indians that were on that football team. And so as a nickname, as a mascot, they called the team the Redskins, and it stuck. Okay. Now that term can be derogatory, so I get it. The Chiefs, is that derogatory? The Indians, is that derogatory? I guess it just depends on how you, I don't know, how you think. Okay. Like the Cleveland Indians, they haven't changed their name, but they got rid of Chief Wahoo, which was their kind of a mascot Indian with a smile on his face type of thing. But I don't know. I think I think we should talk to the Native American communities. If they feel like it should go, then I'm okay with that. But I don't think that white people should speak for them. That's how I feel. Okay. All right. Anyhow, so back to the French. You guys know who started this thing? Who got blamed for starting this? Started this war? You learned about this, didn't you? George.
Oh, yeah.
George Washington.
Yeah.
So George Washington was working with the British, and they were trying to expand out into the Ohio Valley. And there were these French people out there and other natives out there. And George Washington was basically going out there to stake a claim and say, hey, he was a surveyor. I don't know if you knew that. And he went out there and he took with him another Native American leader they called the Half King. Okay. And the Half King and some of his buddies wanted to show off how good of a warrior they were. And they ran across these French people. And without saying anything, they just attacked them. The Native Americans did, the Half King. And they killed these 3 Frenchmen and scalped them. Well, Washington didn't know, and the Half King didn't know, that these were French diplomats. And so there were French troops in the area, and they attacked Washington and the Half King, and they built a fort to try and, save themselves from the French. Called Fort Necessity, which is very rustic. This fort, okay, it's just like a bunch of trees in the ground, creating a circle, and they're living in there, and it's raining, and the French are like, okay, we'll just wait them out. They don't have any food. How can they hunt or fish or anything? They're just going to starve to death. We'll wait them out till they surrender. So Washington comes out and surrenders. Washington doesn't speak French. So these Frenchmen are talking to him, and they're saying, you killed these diplomats. And he's like, what are you saying? I don't know. Yeah. And then they wrote up a confession and said, sign this. He doesn't read French. So Washington signs this confession of murdering these 3 French diplomats. And they said, okay, now go take that back to the British. So Washington reports back to Virginia, and he hands them this paper and says, hey, we had some trouble out there with the French. And they read this, and they go, you signed this? That's what touched off the war. Okay? Telling too much history here. All right, we got to get back to government. All right, so now, this was really expensive. Now, guys, every colony, except for Pennsylvania, if you were a male, you had to serve in the militia. You didn't have a choice. It was conscription. You had to join. And so every month you would get together for what were muster days, where you would learn how to shoot your musket. Okay, you'd learn how to march and take orders. So pretty much every male in the colonies knew how to somewhat fight. And so with the colonists, with the militia, were fighting against the French and Indians, and the British and the American colonists and some Indian tribes were fighting against other Indian tribes and the French. Now, there were more Native American tribes fighting with the French than with the British and the Americans, but there were Native Americans on both sides of this conflict. Okay? Does that make sense? Now, this was expensive. The British had sent 20,000 troops over to America. That's expensive. And when the war is over, British are in debt. But they held off the French and the Native Americans. Now the Americans, the colonists, they want to keep expanding west in the native lands. The British are like, no, just stay here. And the French are, they're wanting to occupy those lands, mostly fur trading. Okay. So, the British ask, since we spent so much protecting you guys, would you mind paying a few taxes? Just chip in to help us out. Colonists are like, no. Now, if you want to give us representation in Parliament, like allow us to elect a couple people to sit in Parliament from each colony, okay, now we can talk about taxes. But without any representation. Because in all of the colonies, who controlled the money? The colonists did. And now the British are asking them to pay up without any representation? I don't think so. Okay? Another important thing, real quick, in 1754, on the eve of this war, Ben Franklin proposed a plan called the Albany Plan. You guys remember this? The Albany Plan of Union. Okay, and what he proposed is that they form a union of the 13 colonies for the purposes of defense. This failed. Okay, on a couple fronts. Some of the colonies didn't like it because they didn't want to hand control to a bigger body. They wanted to remain control of their own colonies, and the British didn't like it either. Okay, but it was the first attempt to unify the 13. Okay, And I'll pick up from there, probably later because, we're gonna discuss the roots of our rights thing on Thursday and Friday. If I post anything, it'll be short. Okay, like say I get through the chart, the grids, then I will, might post a short video picking up from here. Yes?
I'm not gonna be